Tonight, where now for politics? We've lost a First Minister. Could the Prime Minister be heading the same way after a disastrous night at the polls? We have reaction and a look at what's hoped for in the new SNP leader.
I think John Swinney's going to unite the party. John Swinney is a figure with a huge amount of gravitas.
Obviously a massive figure in Scottish politics, and he commands so much respect.
Also making the headlines, Scotland's ageing ferry fleet. Islanders have their say on the future of the service, hoping it will be top of the agenda for the next First Minister.
I just feel that they've not got really a long-term plan in place, and now it's just short-term fixes all the time.
A blow for Rangers. Connor Goldson has been ruled out for the rest of the season due to injury.
And we get a behind-the-scenes look as the largest hands-on Lego event prepares to make its debut this weekend. I'm Vanessa Kennedy in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The end of a tumultuous week in politics, the end of a First Minister and now a Prime Minister under severe pressure. After a week-long focus on the SNP, today it's the Tories in the spotlight after Rishi Sunak suffered a crushing defeat in the final set of elections before the country goes to the polls in a general election later this year.
The results across England and Wales suggest Labour is on course for victory, putting Sir Keir Starmer within touching distance of 10 Downing Street. Well, our Westminster correspondent Paris Gritzianis joins us from Downing Street. And Paris, just how bad are these results for the Conservatives?
Vanessa, this was a huge defeat, the worst for the Conservatives in English council elections in 40 years. And there was also a Westminster by-election yesterday in Blackpool South, and the Tories lost that too, with a huge swing of 26% from the Tories to Labour. And the Tories also finished less than a percentage point behind the Reform Party, which threatens them from the right. Rishi Sunak was left clinging to a narrow victory by the Tory mayor of Tees Valley as his only comfort. But if this set of results is a guide for what could happen at a general election, then Labour would emerge as the largest party. But Sir Keir Starmer would fall just short of an overall majority in Parliament, handing the balance of power to the Liberal Democrats and the SNP.
Here in Blackpool, a message has been sent directly to the Prime Minister. Because this was a parliamentary vote. This was directly to Rishi Sunak to say we're fed up with your decline, your chaos and your division, and we want change.
People knew that they couldn't be taken for granted. They knew that it was Ben and the Conservatives that delivered for them, and they stuck with you in this election. And I know that come the general election, they're going to stick with us too, because they don't want to be taken for granted, and they know that it's you and it's the Conservatives that are building a brighter future for Teesside and a brighter future for Britain. Congratulations. Thank you.
And Paris, what could this mean for the general election in Scotland?
Labour claims that they can win a majority in that general election, but the independent analysis suggests that's still in the balance. If the possibility of a hung parliament hangs over that campaign, it could put the SNP in the spotlight and make life very uncomfortable for Labour. It would also make the results in Scotland absolutely crucial. And remember, things haven't gone all Labour's way today. The party lost ground in areas where there's been anger at Keir Starmer's stance on the war in Gaza. That could also be a significant factor in battlegrounds in Scotland against the SNP. For now, in the Conservative Party, the mood is one of resignation, and the Prime Minister's job is safe. But if he falls further behind in the polls, and perhaps behind reform, that resignation could turn to panic.
OK, Paris and Downing Street, thanks for that. Now, as attention turns to the next general election, of course, the SNP will be heading into it with a new party leader and First Minister after Humza Yousaf dramatically stood down on Monday. John Swinney is currently the only contender after Kate Forbes stood down on the promise of a significant role in his government.
Unless another wildcard candidate emerges before Monday, he could be sworn in as early as next week. While the dust settles after a turbulent week at Holyrood, political reporter Laura Alderman has been getting reaction from party members and pollsters.
The last week has been no picnic for the SNP. As one First Minister stepped down, the next is now on the cusp of coronation. For many, John Swinney represents the return of the old guard. So what do young party members make of it all?
In a way, you could say that the sort of opposition have shot themselves in the foot a little bit. I think John Swinney is obviously a massive figure in Scottish politics, and he commands so much respect, not only within the Parliament, but in the public as well.
I'm looking forward with optimism to what's next. I think John Swinney's going to unite the party. John Swinney is a figure with a huge amount of gravitas. And yeah, it's good that he brought Kate Forbes on board as well.
Sadie, you're the only person that said you weren't so sure about Kate Forbes. Why is that?
I'm a young queer woman, and I was also born out of wedlock, and she's been quite public on her views during the last leadership election that people shouldn't have children out of wedlock, and that people, shouldn't have safe access to abortion, and that she doesn't believe in, the right of two women being able to marry and stuff like that, and those are all things that are very personal to me.
I think it's important that she's been involved just to unite the entire party and make sure that her kind of wing, so to say, is united within the party and they're not taking rebellious votes against the government.
Would any of you here welcome a Holyrood election? Should this be put to the people?
With people Scotland want the SNP to continue on working day to day on education, on health, and not go back having an election that will cost a lot of money just to kind of appease what the opposition parties want.
As the only current contender for the top job, John Swinney's path to becoming First Minister looks clear.
Somebody quite well placed within the SNP said to me earlier in the week that this was about managing decline. And that's not a really positive message. I do think it's quite a superficial view to think John Swinney, as a nice, experienced, safe pair of hands, is the man to bring anything radical to the party.
He'll try to steady the ship inside the party, but outside it's all to play for.
Polling tells us that the public view the SNP as more divided than they have ever done. So the big picture here is that we could be weeks away from a general election. And of course, one of the reasons why the SNP wouldn't want a leadership contest at this stage is that it would distract them, both kind of financially and just in terms of, politically.
The first real test to see if John Swinney is to the public's taste will be when the country goes to the polls in that next general election, whenever that is served up. Laura Alderman, STV News, Holyrood.
And our political correspondent Ewan Petrie is here now. So Ewan, what happens now?
Well, it's hard to believe it's just a week since Humza Yousaf was adamant that he would fight on ahead of a vote of no confidence at Holyrood, and now he finds himself packing boxes at Bute House to make way for his successor. And that is almost certainly going to be John Swinney. He's the only candidate to have declared. The nominations close at noon on Monday, so in theory there could be someone entering the race at the last minute to make this a contest. But if he's the only candidate, he will be the new leader by Monday afternoon. Then the next day, Humza Yousaf will formally resign as First Minister when Holyrood returns. Then MSPs will get the chance to vote on the next First Minister. If that all goes smoothly for John Swinney, then he would be sworn in at the Court of Session on Wednesday. And that's when we might start to begin to hear who will be in his cabinet. And at that point, all eyes will be on Kate Forbes and whether she's been offered a significant role within that cabinet as promised, and of course whether she will choose to accept that. And that cabinet could be in place in time for First Minister's questions on Thursday. That will be exactly 2 weeks after Humza Yousaf announced he was ending that deal with the Greens, which ultimately led to his downfall. So it all just serves as a reminder that life comes at you pretty fast in politics.
Ewan, thank you.
We need new ferries. That's the call from Scotland's island community, who are facing an uncertain summer relying on an ageing ferry fleet. Solving this problem will be high up the agenda for the next First Minister as the tourist season approaches.
Today is the final chance to contribute to a Scottish Government consultation on how best to connect the islands with the mainland. Vanessa Taff has been to Cumbria to see how ferry troubles are impacting island life.
It's almost all aboard. Only 8 vehicles can get onto this temporary small ferry setting sail for Cumbria. There's normally a larger ferry serving this route, but this one has been borrowed after unexpected damage to the ramp put the regular vessel out of action. Open 7 days a week, this cafe owner relies on regular deliveries from the mainland. But when there have been sailing delays and his fresh produce has gone off, he's had to throw it away.
The ferries are quite unreliable. There's 2 ferries on today, for instance. They have a combined age of almost 80 years old, so they're not really fit for purpose anymore. I know the Scottish Government are giving money to CalMac constantly to have them repaired. The ferries are subsidised. And I just feel that they've not got really a long-term plan in place, and now it's just short-term fixes all the time. But from a customer point of view, sometimes people will come down and they'll see the queue and they'll just turn about, or they'll stay in Largs, so we won't get them.
But basically this one has the older method that I told you about, which goes underneath the handlebar.
Caroline lives on the mainland but visits Cumbria 2 or 3 times a week.
For us, it can cause an inconvenience with them being infrequent. For example, the other day you didn't come over. You tried twice to get on the ferry and you couldn't, so you just gave up. But I do think for, like, you even commented, for people coming for the day with a family, you would just give up, you just wouldn't bother coming. And that's such a shame for the island because the businesses rely on those day trippers.
Residents and businesses have shared some of their concerns about the ferry service with the Scottish Government. It's part of a consultation on better connecting the islands. Scott runs this popular bike hire shop and is hopeful that investment in CalMac's fleet will happen sooner rather than later.
I have the confidence that they'll have to deliver. They can't continue this way. We need new ferries. Everywhere needs new ferries. Wherever we pull a ferry from has an impact on somebody else in the ferry route, so it's always going to be a knock-on effect. It is a lifeline service for us, you know, every half an hour at minimum to get to and from the island, you know, if that's vets appointments, hospital appointments. But when it comes down to Friday afternoon, Saturdays and Sundays, there's no heavy vehicles coming over, so it is purely open for tourism to come here.
Isabel was born and raised in Millport and has a lifetime of experience getting on and off the ferry.
Unfortunately, there is no petrol on the island. So we have to go to the mainland to get petrol. People on the island have hospital appointments. They can't get off, and you know how difficult it is to get an appointment in the first place. You know that some people have to maybe go over the night before, stay in the mainland and go to their appointment, but then they're not guaranteed to get back on the island.
CalMac plan to have the vessel back on the water in mid-June. They say they're prioritising the service and ensuring there will be 2 ferries on the route to avoid disruption. Cumbria is ready and open for business. Its islanders are hopeful that the ferry service won't impact their plans to show visitors a fun summer season. The Scottish Government consultation is considering the best way to connect Scotland's islands. Its long-term plan is to set out the future not only of the ferry service, but other modes of transport as well for islands and those who come to visit. It's also asking whether bridges could be one possible solution. Well, the responses and recommendations will form part of the Island Connectivity Plan. Now, the Scottish Government are facing huge criticism over their ability to provide a modern and resilient fleet. And locals here in Millport say that's exactly what they're after: reliability and resilience. Of course, all of Scotland's islands are unique, but the one concern that they all share is over the future of the ferry service.
Tickets for Scotland's Euros opener against Germany are being offered by online resale companies for up to £12,000. The final public sale ended yesterday, with Scotland's 3 group stage victors quickly selling out. UEFA has warned fans that buy from unofficial outlets, they could be refused entry.
To other stories in the West now, and a driver who killed a pedestrian crossing the road in Glasgow's Shawlands area has avoided jail. Muhammad Ali pled guilty to causing George Jarvis's death by careless driving in March 2022. The 69-year-old died in hospital 3 days after the incident. Ali was ordered to do 150 hours of unpaid work and disqualified from driving for 12 months. A hyperbaric chamber that has served the diving community in the west coast of Scotland since the 1970s has had its funding pulled. The facility at Dunstaffnage near Oban has treated more than 400 divers for decompression illness over the year. But now patients will have to travel to Aberdeen if they are to receive treatment. Caitlin Hutchinson reports.
The
The wrecks and reefs in the waters near Oban make it a mecca for diving enthusiasts. But another big draw for divers is this state-of-the-art hyperbaric chamber, one of only 3 in Scotland. It saved Jessica's life 10 years ago after a diving accident that left her gravely ill.
My suit filled with air and I was shot to the surface in the middle of a storm and I had to swim 45 minutes to the shore. I was quite scared because I thought I was having some neurological illness or something happened, and I felt like I was losing control of my body. I lost my balance, I couldn't speak properly. I was just terrified in that moment. But luckily I was treated at the hospital and they called an ambulance and they took me right away to the chamber. After 2 treatments I would start writing my name again. I could control my body, my bowels, I could start walking properly.
The most severe cases of decompression sickness can result in paralysis or even death, so speedy treatment is crucial. But with services here currently shut down by NHS Grampian, divers who become unwell now face a journey to Aberdeen.
Imagine the weather is bad, there are no ambulance, or if you have to be taken by helicopter, they cannot fly because of the weather conditions. I don't want to even think about it.
Since it opened in the 1970s, more than 400 people have been treated here at this facility. And while the number of patients may be relatively low, the local diving community here has serious concerns about the major impacts any potential delays to treatment could have.
Okay, chamber, that's us coming up to a 5-minute air break.
The diving at work regulations recommend 2 to 6 hours for time to a chamber. So if we were operating on Mull or Tyree or one of the outer isles, to get to Aberdeen in less than 6 hours is going to be a challenge. So there's potential legal implications for the diving companies, there's potential health implications for the divers.
Companies like Northwest Marine, who provide professional diving services to a variety of businesses in the area, are now having to reassess.
One of the things that we're looking at is establishing our own chamber here to give chamber cover in the area to our divers. We're looking into the costs, but it's probably in excess of 500,000. It's not something that we really want to go down that line. We were very happy with the service of the chamber at Dunstafnage, and to us it's a big loss.
NHS Grampian says there are well-established transport links in place to manage transfers to Aberdeen. But with more than 10,000 signatures on a petition calling for the decision to be reversed, pressure on the Health Board is mounting. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News, Oban.
When the weekend sport is beckoning, who are you going to call? Sports Buster.
That was rotten.
It was
John.
rotten, I know, it just made me laugh. Anyway.
Shall I carry on? Cheers. Good evening to you all. Brendan Rodgers believes Celtic playing a day before Rangers this weekend can be an advantage in the title race as they aim to go 6 points clear at the top of the Premiership. Rodgers' side take on Hearts tomorrow. Stephen Naismith's team have won their last 2 games against the champions. At Ibrox, a blow for Philippe Clement. Connor Goldson has been ruled out for the rest of the season after sustaining a knee ligament injury. Here's Ronnie Charters.
His team are in pole position to retain the Premiership. 3 points clear with just 4 games to go. This weekend sees Celtic play on Saturday before Rangers take to the field on Sunday. So does Brendan Rodgers believe playing before your rivals is an advantage?
Scoreboard pressure is always there. It's always there, but it doesn't count for nothing if you don't do the job. So I think that if you're playing second, of course, you'll know the other team's result. But primarily you have to focus on yourselves. But it can certainly add weight, especially at this time of the season.
Ahead of the visit of Hearts, Liam Scales has signed a new 4-year contract until 2028.
I'm just delighted to get it done. You know, I've wanted it, and it's happened now. And look, I'm just happy to have it done in the back seat now, and then go on and focus on the games coming up.
At Rangers, Philippe Clement has received more bad news on the injury front. Connor Goldson won't play again this season.
Wednesday in the training was a duel. Player fell on Connor on his knee, and he hurt his knee bad, so he tried to continue but couldn't, so we made a scan and we see he has a tear in his medial ligament, so he will be out for the rest of the season.
Rangers play Kilmarnock on Sunday, and Clement insists it's still all to play for in the title race.
You can be 3 points behind the last 5 minutes of the last game, and it can change. So we need to focus on one thing, and that's for ourselves to take as many points as possible.
Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Stephen Naismith says no other player comes close to Lawrence Shankland in the running to be crowned Scotland's Player of the Year. The Hearts boss insists he's planning for next season with his top goal scorer still at the club as Shankland enters the final 12 months of his contract. The striker is one of 4 players on the shortlist for the PFA Scotland Premiership Player of the Year award.
I'm not sure it's close, if I'm honest. I think he's been the best player. I think he should win it. I expect him to win it. He's got a year left. And that's how we'll focus on it, but ultimately it needs to be right for Hearts, and that's exactly what we'll do. And if we think we can do something to keep a player here, we will, and if we think it's the right time to move them on, we'll move on.
Nick Montgomery says the SFA's admission that Hibs were on the wrong end of 2 recent penalty calls is like a punch in the face following their bottom 6 finish. Among a total of 10 officiating errors in the 3rd round of Premiership games, the VAR independent review panel deemed a spot kick should not have been awarded to Hearts in February's Edinburgh derby.
Just like another punch in the face, I'll be honest, because to live through that and to have a derby win taken off us, taken off the fans, taken off the boys that put the effort in and deserved to win that game on an incident that everybody knew was wrong on the night, and for that to come out and to be said in a report that it was a wrong incident, yeah, it's unacceptable.
Now, as he prepares for his 100th game as St Mirren manager, Stephen Robinson says his team don't need to play pretty football as they aim to end their 5-game winless run. The Saints, who are 5th in the Premiership, are away to 6th place Dundee tomorrow, with both clubs battling for a European spot for next season.
I will take a really poor performance tomorrow and 3 points. It's now the business end of it where we want to gain points, where we don't need to play pretty football. We don't need to maybe do what we've done all season and try and control games. Obviously, being directly below us and the opportunity to go a little bit further clear of Dundee, then it makes it very important.
One final piece of football news. UEFA have confirmed countries competing at this summer's Euros will be allowed to select 26 players in their squads. That, folks, is all your sport tonight.
Well, we're going into a bank holiday weekend and Sean has headed to the coast for us. Sean, are we going to see any sun at all this weekend?
Well, just like clockwork in typical Scottish style, holiday weekend, yes, people are out enjoying it just now, you can probably hear in the background, but the clouds have arrived and so has the rain. There's been quite a bit of that across South Lanarkshire earlier on, parts of Ayrshire. We're very lucky here in Gourock because the clouds have almost just been splitting from the east of us and going round us, but we have had a few spots of rain. We will get a bit more later on. But as we go into the holiday weekend, unfortunately we've got more cloud on the way, we've got some outbreaks of rain, there could be some heavy showers, although hopefully when the cloud does break we'll still get a little bit of warm sunshine at times, but certainly not as good as it's been in the west over the last couple of days. As I say, pretty typical for a Scottish holiday weekend. Let's look at the forecast.
A spell of wows will gradually settle into a scattering of traditional tapas. TUI sponsors STV weather.
So here's your lovely weekend clouds. They've been across England and Wales recently. They're going to be spreading northwards. We've got a lot of cloud around here at the moment. And actually we've got some shafts of light coming down through that cloud at the moment. And they are called crepuscular rays. There you go. Every day's a school day. So yes, more cloud coming in for the weekend with some showery outbreaks of rain. And overnight tonight we're going to see a lot of cloud for many parts. There'll still be some showers around as we go through the night, but becoming largely dry. And actually a very mild night once again, especially around the west coast. Those temperatures probably still staying about 10 or 11 degrees Celsius, 7 or 8 degrees along the east coast. Now as we go into tomorrow, we've got a weak weather front moving its way northwards. That gives us a very misty and murky day. You can see I've put a lot of mist on the chart there tomorrow, especially around the east coast, the eastern hills, the Ochils, the Lammermuirs, the Pentlands, poor visibility, drizzly outbreaks of rain for many parts. The best of any brighter weather tomorrow really reserved for the very far west, the west coast and also the Hebrides. Again, the likes of Ardnamurchan around Loch Shiel and also around Mora here will have some bright brighter spells. And again, the temperature's probably about 18 or 19 degrees here, but for most of us 13 or 14 degrees with that cloud around. But as we head into Sunday, I'm hopeful that the clouds should start to thin and break a wee bit, and we'll get some sunny spells around, but we will get some heavy showers developing over inland parts, and the same also on Monday, sunny spells and hopefully feeling pleasant in the sunshine. But yes, you'll need to watch out for those heavy showers, especially over inland parts.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, the world's largest Lego event of its kind is about to land in Edinburgh. This is the first time Brickfest Live has taken place in the UK.
More than 1 million toy bricks will be on display, ready for fans to make their own creations. Our reporter Laura Piper has been granted a preview, and she was able to take one young superfan with her.
This is unboxing on a massive scale. More than 1 million pieces of Lego unpacked and on show. Brickfest Live has landed in Scotland, and this local Lego superfan can't wait.
How many Lego bricks do you think you have at home?
Estimated guess about 5,000.
A
lot.
A lot of Lego.
Yes. You can build the fiddle with it. It's assemble pieces, and then you get all these different universes into one with bricks.
Originally from America, this mega event is now on tour.
So it's a lot of logistics challenging, especially when you've got the big dinosaurs to load and stuff like that. But we've got a great team, it's a great venue. It takes 2 days to set up. We're just literally finishing off today, ready to open the doors tomorrow.
The event kicks off at the Royal Highland Centre this weekend.
As soon as I seen the inquiry come in, I was like, yes, this will be perfect in our venue. So I think it's exciting that we'll be able to welcome a different kind of demographic to the venue as well.
This event is a Lego extravaganza. Nearly everything in this room is made of Lego, including this throne and even the microphone. There's a glow zone and many famous faces. Characters like these can each take at least 36 hours to build. Lego dates back nearly 100 years. So what is it about these tiny bricks that has helped them stand the test of time?
You know, this is something, you don't need your phone, you don't need your social media, you just pick your bricks and put them together in whatever you like. You can kill days, hours, at least have a great time over here. So this is something, in my imagination, kids will play with Lego like forever.
This is, after all, a toy for all ages and professions, and an event likely to appeal to many Lego fans. Laura Piper, STV News, Edinburgh.
See, John, Laura said you're never too old, so you're fine.
Well, thank you for that, Vanessa. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.